Yo, welcome to another episode of the Roundball Ramble podcast. I'm your host, Corbin Ford. You can follow me on Twitter at CorbinNBA. This is a Sports Ethos presentation, so check out Sports Ethos on Twitter at Sports Ethos, online, sportsethos.com. If you've been listening to the show the last couple of days, you've already had our Sports Ethos panel preview. Different guests from across the network came in, and I was happy to be one of those to give our takes on the playoffs. And then I also had a more specific first-round matchup preview episode with Ron Guterman. Check that out. That is dropped by the time you listened to this yesterday. But we got another one. We got a little bonus one for you, and I'm really excited about this. Good friend of the show, super Kings fan, and we're talking Kings. Kings versus Warriors. First round, Erik is on the show. You can follow him on Twitter. Please do, at ErikBBall3. Guy's a Kings fan with good taste in terms of hoops and solid takes, and I think we'll get some of that here. But before we even get started with all that, Erik, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Kings are in the playoffs starting. We're recording Friday night. Kings going to be in game one tomorrow. It's been a long time coming. It's been 17 years, and you're hearing about how all these playoff tickets are going for pretty much your firstborn child. So I mean, the entire city is ready. They have a little playoff pavilion downtown and the little around the arena. The city is ready. I'm ready. Can't wait.
There we go. It's like bringing it on. Let's make that happen. I'm excited for it for sure. And I think that the Kings, this is a fun one. I mean, I've known you for a couple of years now. We've seen the Kings been, they've been pretty bad, right? Like yeah. It's been almost 2 decades of just real bad play for the most part. But they're back. They've had a change in their identity. I think it started with the hiring of Coach Mike Brown. So we saw that. We see the fact that, first they signed one of my favorite players, and this is, of course, Malik Monk from the Lakers. I was really upset about that, but I thought he'd be a good addition. Make the trade for Kevin Huerter. You're already building off of, Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. You have pieces that fit now, an offense that's electric, a defense that isn't really there, but these Kings have rolled off. Like, light the beam, which is so fun to say. Like, I beam when I say it. Like, that's fun. And they lit the beam 48 times this season. Third best record in the West. Best team in the Pacific Division. Just a really solid year for them. Like, this is a season I think of my friend Jillian, I think of Damian, like so many people I know on Twitter that are Kings fans that deserve this, and I'm very happy for them. But let's start with you, because it isn't about me. Before we even get into the playoff series, what has been your take on this season? Because I had you on, funnily enough, around the time the season started. And to see this happen now, it has to be so cool.
Yeah, it's been a great experience. Even going back to last year, a lot of people were making fun of the Domantas Sabonis trade. People were saying, what are the Kings doing? This malpractice. JJ Redick has gone on the record to apologize to King fans because we are letting him know that, that trade was not malpractice, and he's been cool enough to walk back that statement. But it all started last year at the trade deadline. Heart still hurts a little bit thinking about how Tyrese Halliburton isn't on the Kings anymore, but he's being successful. And, you gotta enjoy the moment as it comes, because as Kings fans, we don't really know when the ride is going to end. We're just going to enjoy it as long as we can.
Unfortunately, that is true. I think in this case, there's some hope for optimism, a solid foundation. But then again, we've had hope before, right? We've had hope before, and that is something that, not we, Kings fans had hope before. We as a Laker fans, I'm not going to compare the two, but, but yeah, that is something that I'm sure, let's just say it's this way. If you are a fan of a franchise, a loyal fan as you have been, that has maybe experienced more ups and downs than the average franchise, then there have been times, of course, where you are in lulls. I think from the Lakers, between 2015 and 2019 was bad. Now, granted, 4 years and 16 years, we don't light a candle to the depths that you've been in. But at the same time, the highs of this is so cool, because the Lakers, okay, at some point we're expected to have the big fish come in. Or now you win a championship, it's the bubble championship. And LeBron chose to come to LA because of the sun. With this Kings team, people that either signed there or were traded there, that worked together, that built the culture, and now you have this winning mentality. And here you are in the playoffs. So let's get right into that. 3 seed, Sacramento Kings. First game at home by the time people listening today. The Warriors, 6 seed. They've had up and down season. injuries up and down, dysfunction from the offseason with, Jordan Poole and Draymond Green punching him for very little reason. They seemingly can't win a game outside of the Chase Center. They come into town facing off against your Kings. I think the series, the Warriors won 3-1, but all 3 games, most of them were close. Out of the 4 games, only one wasn't close, with the Kings getting 1 win and the other being a really controversial foul call on Kevin Huerter, foul not called on Klay Thompson on Kevin Huerter that would have potentially sent the game to overtime or a win for the Kings. So a lot there, not a whole lot to dig into for the regular season matchup. So I'm just throwing to you, what are you looking at between these two teams and this playoff matchup? Let's get your takes on how these squads size up, in your opinion.
To add a little bit more context to what you were talking about, yeah, they've had 4 games this year, like you said. Kings lost 3 games and won 1. The important thing really to remember is that last game that was in April, I believe, was just pretty much a garbage time game. I mean, Sabonis didn't play, I don't believe. Fox didn't play. So they pretty much just threw out the second unit and said, hey, Harrison Barnes, you can keep your active streak going, because he's played every game this year. So we threw him in there. And so that game really didn't matter. But the 2 really big ones were the November games. There was also an additional October game that happened. Kings lost by 5 points, but that was within our first 4 games of the year. We started on that little 0-4 trip, or 0-4 start. And to give you an idea how far back that was, Keegan Murray wasn't in the starting lineup. KZ Okpala was.
Wow.
To give even more context, the Sacramento Kings had not yet lit the beam. That's how our season started. We started 0-4. We had not even lit the beam yet as of that time of that game. So that kind of gives you some context to how long ago that was. The 2 games in November were really the ones that kind of showed how the teams were going to match up. Looking back at that game, for example, we have the controversial Kevin Huerter fouled by Klay Thompson game. The Kings pretty much played their traditional lineup that we can expect to see in the playoffs. Harrison Barnes, Keegan Murray, Sabonis, Huerter, and Fox starting with Mitchell, Monk, Lyles, Metu, and then Terrence Davis off the bench. TD may not get minutes. He may have to play behind Kessler Edwards. It kind of all depends on what the coaching staff sees. He has been awesome offensively. He has some great defensive moments, but unfortunately, TD also hasn't been having some great defensive moments, but Kessler Edwards, kind of the opposite. He has some good offensive moments, but most of his star shines on defense. So those players, that's kind of what I'm expecting the rotation to look like. For the Warriors in that game, they did have their traditional starting 5, Wiggins, Green, Looney, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, with Jordan Poole, Kuminga coming off the bench. I don't think Dante DiVincenzo was getting quite the minutes that he was at the end of the year when Steph Curry was out or Andrew Wiggins was out. So I think Dante DiVincenzo is going to be really big coming in at the end of the year. If you look at the game that was, hold on one second, what game was that? I think it was November 14th. That was actually a Kings win. That was a 7-point win for the Kings. The Warriors pretty much played their playoff rotation: Wiggins, Green, Looney, Thompson, Curry, Poole, Kuminga, DiVincenzo, and then Anthony Lamb. I don't know if Anthony Lamb's going to get any minutes, but
I'm about to say, yeah. But still, to take it in context, right?
Yeah. So those were the 9 that played, and that was a 7-point win for the Kings. Then Kings played their traditional 10-man rotation, the same one we had just listed, with TD getting minutes. And so pretty much those November games, it was pretty close. You have a 7-point win for the Kings. You have a 3-point win for the Warriors on a controversial call. Kings won on their home floor. The Warriors won on their home floor both times early in the season, and then that game in November. My kind of lukewarm take, not really that hot, is that the Kings and the Warriors are each going to take 1 game on the road. And, everyone talks about how the Warriors have had the worst road record pretty much in the NBA this year, or at least for a playoff team. For context, for people who don't know,
finals contending.
Yeah, the Warriors are 11-30 on the road. So that kind of gives some context. Funnily enough, the Sacramento Kings are one of only 2 teams in the NBA that actually had a better record or had more wins on away games than home games. So the Kings went 23-18 at home, but they went 25-16 on the road. For some context, the only other team was the New York Knicks, who went 23-18 at home and 24-17 on the road. So the Kings are a very good road team, It may not really seem like it because it's like, oh, they're just did a little bit better than they did at home. But pretty much, I think that there's a very real chance that the Kings could even take 2 games on the road, and the Warriors could take 2 games on the road. You never know. Like, we'll get into my predictions later, but as of right now, I don't think the home team's it's not going to be guaranteed that the home team wins every game. You know, like the saying goes, fair. Series doesn't start until the road team wins one.
Road team wins. You said it.
It may start quickly, unfortunately for us, but then, you know, it might just swing back the other way. So,
yeah. It sounds, and again, we're going to get to predictions here in a bit, but it sounds like you're anticipating a longer series, which I'm very intrigued by for sure. I tend to kind of share some of that optimism there, some of that thought process. But looking at obviously the Warriors, kind of do a little bit of a breakdown of the two so far. What strengths do you think the Kings have that will be, whether you want to say difficult for the Warriors to contend with, or more of a clear advantage outright for Sacramento? Like, what strengths do you think that you bring to the table that, listen, you know, we got this. Like, at the end of the day, De'Aaron Fox is going to get to the lane at will. At the end of the day, you know, our off-ball and screening actions are going to make sure that we get our shooters hot, and that's going to be a factor. Like, what type of weapons do you think you bring at your disposal that you know for a fact, listen, there's going to be a problem for Golden State to match up with this?
Yeah. To kind of rephrase your question, I think that there are a couple swing factors that I would say. For one,
I like that.
Yeah, Golden State Warriors 3-point shooting is going to be huge. Sacramento Kings are also a team that shoots lots of threes. Mike Brown has said that he likes paint touches into open threes. So it's going to be a shootout. There's going to be a lot of shooting. I would say the real categories that I think are going to swing for the Kings' positive direction, depending on how things go, free throw rate and turnovers, things of that nature. If the Warriors are going to turn the ball over and the Kings can take advantage of that, that's really going to benefit the Kings. And then another thing is that the Sacramento Kings are attempting more free throws than the Warriors by a pretty sizable margin. For example, I'm using some numbers from the post All-Star break section of NBA.com. Sacramento Kings attempted the third most free throws in the NBA post All-Star break. Golden State Warriors, if you scroll down, way down, they're 26, you know. So the amount of free throws attempted is really could be a sizable X factor. It also depends on the refs. We won't discuss Sacramento Kings' feelings on refs because that also goes back 2 decades, but moving on.
I was going to say that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, back to those perfectly legal Lakers-Kings matchups. The Lakers won fair and square without any refs involved at all. I will continue to stand by that. But I understand. I understand why Kings fans might feel differently. I can respect that. But yeah, we don't have to go into that. No need to raise hard feelings now.
Yeah. So to give an example, some stats from Basketball Reference, the Warrior that has the highest free throw rate, other than Lester Quinones, who has 4 games played, was Kevon Looney. He's about 40.4%, meaning he shoots a free throw pretty much 40% of the time. He shoots a field goal. The Sacramento Kings have Harrison Barnes shooting 52.2% and Sabonis 46.7%, meaning that pretty much Harrison Barnes is shooting a free throw for every 2 field goal attempts he gets. Wow. So that kind of tells you how the Kings get their offense from. They get it from threes, they get it from paint touches like Fox to Sabonis, and they get it from the line with guys like Harrison Barnes, Sabonis, Fox. Whereas the Warriors are more of that 3-point shooting team. They shoot a lot of jump shots. I know officiating has kind of been an issue for a lot of teams this year. I feel like there's been more complaints about the officiating, not only from fans, but also from teams this year for free throw discrepancy.
Yep.
So my second medium take is that you're going to see both sides complain about the referees a lot. Sacramento Kings fans may feel like they're getting hit a lot because it's playoff physicality, and there are probably going to be a good amount of Kings fans that haven't been watching the playoffs super closely
for years.
I'm not going to say that they're uneducated Kings fans, but there may be some fans that were not paying as close attention or didn't have a stake. And you'll see a lot of fans adamantly complain. Not to mention, Kings haven't been known to get the best whistle, and you're going to see you're going to see the same thing from Warrior fans because, hey, Steph Curry's an MVP. How come he doesn't get foul calls? Well, Curry typically shoots 3-pointers.
Exactly. It's going to be funny to read the NBA just wants the Kings to win. I think it's going to be funny to see those takes. I will find those hilarious.
Yes. The team that, 90% of NBA media fans, talking heads has picked a team to move on is definitely not the favorite team. The team that, everyone calls a poverty franchise is definitely the one the league wants to win.
Exactly. No, you said it. Exactly, which is funny. And, it's also a good point about the referee because, like, you said that just now, immediately as a Laker fan, I'm like, yeah, we had a game against the Mavericks. Christian Wood totally fouled LeBron. We didn't get a call. We had a game against the Celtics. Jason Tatum fouled LeBron, no call. We had a game against the 76ers where Joel Embiid wrapped his hand around Russell Westbrook, no call. Like, off the top of my head, these are like boom, boom, boom. So as Kings fans, that's the thing as well. And that's the thing across the NBA in general. Some of it overblown. Some of it, I think there's some real merit there. And I definitely don't think I think it's important to parse out, what is legit and what isn't. But I agree. Like, whether it is a combination of the Kings playing playoff basketball and seeing the difference there, whether it is, the fact the Warriors get a friendly whistle and after Draymond gets a tech, there's just an unwritten NBA rule that he can no longer receive another tech for the remainder of the game, no matter how much he yells, where De'Aaron Fox could probably get one, and you probably see 2 out for someone like a Terrence Davis. I'm just throwing out names here. So definitely see that. But I get you. I think that's going to be an adjustment for sure. But the quicker they do adjust, I think it'll obviously be beneficial for the Kings in order to just understand the way the game will be called. Hopefully there is some sense of some semblance of consistency there. I think that's important. But aside from that, turning the table in the other direction, as a Kings fan, what are you more worried about from the Warriors? Because I think the immediate one I think of is one Steph and Wardell Curry.
Yeah, I would say that's primary concern. I'd say that, the 3-point shooting, as discussed already, if you have Klay Thompson getting hot, Steph Curry getting hot, Jordan Poole getting hot, any of those guys can go off for 30 pretty easily. The Kings, yes, we've had guys who had some scoring explosions, like Malik Monk scored 45 against the Clippers during the year. Kevin Huerter's gone off for 30. Like, those guys can go off and, get hot, but the Warriors just have another level that they can hit offensively. The Kings don't have that same star power per se, but that might even work out because they can score from so many different guys. You can have Terrence Davis go off. You can have Keegan Murray go off. You can have Kevin Huerter or Monk or pretty much anyone. It's not just all Fox and Sabonis. Harrison Barnes could even do like 25 points. It can hit you from all different types of angles. I'm not expecting us to get like 130 to 130 type games like we were talking, like what some fans might be expecting. I do think that there is going to be some kind of the tempo isn't going to be as fast as they normally are, and because it's the playoffs, and that I think both teams are going to kind of be locked in since they both run. It's not the same offense, but it's similar. A lot of dribble handoffs, lots of off-ball movement. The bigs are the ones making a lot of the interior passes out to the cutters or to spraying it out to shooters on the three-point line. So they have a general idea of how their offense is going to work, so that helps out a little bit. But also, there's nothing like the real thing. Like when Steph Curry comes off a pin down, pump fakes, and someone jumps at him, he gets hit in the air and he's just chucking it up one-handed and still makes it. Like, you can't. There's no.
What can you do?
Yeah, exactly. What can you
do? Dudes changed the game, made a career doing just that. So I agree with you there. Yeah, I think that's one. I think another one as well is, and I guess I'd ask you this: how confident or not confident are you in Domantas Sabonis' ability to hold up defensively against the Warriors? I feel like he's kind of a weak point in this system defensively. Whether he can be called on an island or put in no man's land, whether the Kings decide to play a deep drop, which I doubt they will do, but like could be a problem between Curry and Poole and them. But also if they bring him to level the screen, I still think Curry can get around him. I also think the same for a Poole. And Klay Thompson. I mean, maybe. I think that Sabonis could possibly stand in front of him, but he's a totally different weapon entirely, coming off the screen. So how do you look at Sabonis? I do feel he'll be targeted defensively, several times by the Warriors relentlessly in their actions. And I want to get a sense of what are you thinking about, worried about, whatever the case may be, when it comes to Sabonis on the defensive side of the ball.
So what I'm going to say may be controversial to some, but I'm going to kind of back it up a little bit with what I'm thinking. I think Sabonis is an average defensive big. I don't think he's poor. I think he's average. The reason I say that is because he has good perimeter movement. I know that when he's hedging, he's solid. He can kind of keep people in front of him somewhat on the perimeter if his job is just to contain and then return back to his man. So when they're stretching him out on the 3-point line, yeah, it's going to be a problem because if he's not up at the level, they're going to shoot over him because he doesn't have the length. And he also doesn't have the rim protection skills that other teams have. But one other thing that really helps out, and I consider this also part of defense, he's one of the best defensive rebounders in the game. Like he led the NBA in rebounds for a reason, or at least he was like top 3 if I'm remembering correctly. So the best way to finish a defense possession is getting the rebound. And if he's the best rebounder and Kevon Looney's one of the best offensive rebounders in the game, if they can kind of cancel each other out, that's kind of taken away from something that was a real strength for the Warriors. And now it's just kind of a neutral because if Sabonis can dominate the boards, that's going to be a big swing factor. And it kind of goes the same way if Kevon Looney is able to kill the offensive boards because Sabonis had to rotate out to shooters or had to step up and had to play at the level when the shot goes up. That's going to hurt the Kings because our second biggest guy on the floor with our starters is typically Harrison Barnes, who is strong and is willing to put a body on someone, but he's also not that great of a rebounder either.
That's also, that's something as well there for sure. I actually like your take about Sabonis being a decent defender. I don't know if I completely agree, but I definitely understand the reason you give behind it. And yeah, I mean, I think is something to consider for sure. Offensively, I mean, there's no worries with what, he's going to bring to the table there. And I'm very excited for De'Aaron Fox as well. But
yeah, just to kind of go back to that, like I'm not expecting them to play him in a deep drop, and I'm not expecting them to switch him onto an island and expect him to get stops. But I think Mike Brown knows what our team's weaknesses are, and he's going to put him in a position where he may get exposed because the Warriors tend to expose pretty much everyone. Even if you're a good defender, the Warriors can make you look bad. I'm not saying that Sabonis is going to look great, but I don't think he's just going to be unplayable. Like, for example, can't play Cantor type thing where it's just.
I was about to say it.
He's not going to be unplayable. I think he's going to be solid defensively where he is not going to be the reason we lose.
Okay. I can get that. That makes sense for sure. Looking at the coaching matchup, Mike Brown, Steve Kerr, coaching together for years in the Golden State coach, or Mike Brown coaching alongside Kerr for years as part of that Golden State coaching staff. I think it's kind of funny that both teams are not really great with transition defense, and historically it's kind of always,
Transition defense, the Kings were one of the top in stopping fast breaks this year. So
I mistaken. Excuse me.
That,
My fault. I was mistaken. I meant to say both teams defensively have issues, but for the Warriors have not been good transition defense. At least I'm sure about that. And so for years, both of them coaching together, probably bemoaning that fact. And now separately, one team trying to capitalize on that while the other team is trying to prevent that. That's basically what I mean. I'm sorry. You're right. I misspoke, but yes, I appreciate that. But no,
so that's one thing. Because people usually talk about how Mike Brown was the person who was in charge of Golden State's defense. Mm-hmm. And it shows up very much that Mike Brown's a detail-oriented coach when you look at what the Kings are actually good at. Yes, sometimes they're not the best defensively when it comes to the actual personnel, but Mike Brown is known for taking that quick 1 minute, 2 minute coach pop type timeout where if someone gets back cut, he's going to call a timeout immediately, or if they're not doing what they need to be doing scheme-wise, he's going to call a timeout immediately. So I think that helps with certain things. You can't handle Golden State transition attack 100% of the time. That's just not possible because Steph Curry can pull up from 35 feet on the fast break just because he feels like it, and then he shimmies while the ball's in the air. But the Sacramento Kings have found ways to kind of lock in on the details. And I think if anything's going to happen, they may get beat personnel-wise, but they're not going to get beat discipline-wise. They're going to stay disciplined. Mike Brown does not allow if the Kings come out undisciplined, I can just imagine Mike Brown just walking out of the arena and just going, "Oh, I guess this is it."
This is it. Yep. Great series. Good to play. Nice seeing you. We'll build on next year. No,
we'll see you next game. Yeah.
Who do you have as an X factor for either team? I know obviously we're doing King specific, but I'm not going to limit you to just that if you have another player in mind. But who for you is the X factor in this series? And it could be as many as you want to share. I'm curious about that.
I'll give you one for the Warriors, one for the Kings. I already mentioned Kevon Looney. I think he's going to be a big deciding factor on who's able to win the series. If the Warriors have to go small, like let's say for example they have to pull out Looney and they go Draymond at the 5, I don't think Sabonis is going to completely mash him. Draymond's an all-league defender for a reason. He has the history to back that up. But if they're able to keep Looney off the court, that limits their offensive rebounding, that limits their secondary attempts, that changes their split actions and things of that nature. So I think if he can consistently stay on the court because he's so good defensively as well, Looney is so good defensively as well, I think he's going to be huge whether or not the Warriors can pretty much handle the boards as well as they need to. Because Sabonis is going to play 40 minutes pretty much every game, no doubt, just because he's so good at running the Kings offense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I guess this was kind of a hot take. I don't know if other people think it's that hot, but I think Davion Mitchell is going to start at least a game in this series. I can totally see him kind of playing the Fred VanVleet role, in that he's just going to be on Steph Curry the entire time. Because we've seen FEV or Fred VanVleet, we've seen Dellavedova. You get these really small guards that their one job is just follow Steph Curry everywhere he goes. And I think Davion is that one person on the Kings who we know is going to give 100% effort every defensive possession. He's going to, if his one job is to just follow Steph Curry every single way and don't let him breathe, I think Davion is the person to do it. I think also he's kind of been underrated offensively this year. He's been taking a lot of three-pointers because that's pretty much what his role is on the offense. For example, to give you an idea, percentage of his shots being three-pointers, the great majority of his shots were three-pointers. I don't have the numbers in front of me. But like, for example, for the year, he attempted 197 three-pointers, and he only shot 32% on those. So people are going to look at it and say, oh, that's not really that great. But during Baylor's title run, when he was still in college, he was known for hitting step backs. He was known for getting to the rim. And he shoots 70% at the rim, according to Basketball Reference this year. And I think that's going to be pretty important, is can he be an offensive threat while guarding Steph Curry on the other end? And I think so, because if the Warriors are willing to leave anyone open, whether it's Fox and Sabonis have the ball and, they're helping off of anyone, they're probably going to help off Davion. And I think he has shown enough pretty much from March and April that his offensive game is improved. He's comfortable, and I think he's going to play a really big role in how the Kings are going to be successful in this series.
There you go. I think the X factor for me is Davion Mitchell and also Gary Payton II.
Oh, yes.
I think both those guys play very similar roles as point of attack guys who can maybe potentially not cut off the head of the snake, but really make it difficult. But they're only going to be as effective as they are. They're only going to be as effective on the floor as they will be able to either mitigate or shine in their offensive opportunities. If they're both gaping liabilities, then, it's going to be working on each other. You're saving the energy for their respective matchup to hide on them to then, have that back and forth chess match on the other end. So I think it's going to be important for both those guys. We both know the shaky outside shooting, Mitchell a little bit better than Payton, of course, but just being effective and not being a complete liability on the offensive end to then show their value on the defense side of the floor.
Perfectly said. The nice thing is about both offenses is that there's always constant player movement. And so even if, that their defender may be resting, they're still going to cut, they're still going to get handoffs, or they're still going to be in the weak side so that they're making cuts when their defender leaves them. And so they always hopefully are going to be considered a threat, whether it's Gary Payton for Warrior fans or Davion for Kings fans. So it'll be interesting to see how you help, how you pick your poison when it comes to what you're willing to give up, who you're leaving open, because there's no like Andre Roberson or Tony Allen type defender who's just going to be completely left alone and the guy just kind of stands around or just only cuts back door when the help leaves.
Exactly. Very true. Very true. All right. Well, I feel like we are getting to the point of prediction time, Eric. I think that we've kind of gone over the coaching matchup. You feel the X factors are broken down there. Got a little bit of breakdown of both teams. let's get to the nitty gritty. Let's get your predictions on this matchup. I mean, yeah, I'll go first because I think we'll leave with the guests. In this case, your opinion. I think it's going to be a lot more, as it should be, a little more impactful. So I'm gonna go quick. I have Warriors in 6. I think that the experience is going to play a factor at the end of the day. I think that there is something to be said for a team that's been there many times in terms of understanding the stage. I don't think De'Aaron Fox is going to have a problem with it at all. Sabonis has experience playing in the playoffs with the Pacers. Kevin Huerter has experience playing in the playoffs with the Hawks. Harrison Barnes has experience, all with the Warriors, but he has experience as well. But after that, a lot of guys are going to be playing some minutes that are not quite there. I'm looking at Keegan Murray. How is he going to show up in this stage? You know what I mean? I think he'll be solid. He's a very good pro of a player. But that's one I have. And I think over time, little ebbs and flows, little things here and there, for what is still a relatively young team might show up that will give the Warriors the advantage. That and the fact that I don't think the Kings have a clear way of stopping Steph Curry. And we've seen him win series before. So this would just be another walk in the park in that respect. But I'm ready for an entertaining series, and I don't put it past the Kings making it frisky, making it tight. But anyway, that's enough about myself. Sir, what is your prediction?
Okay, before I give my prediction, we talked earlier around the trade deadline that for the Kings over this season, I took the Kings over 34.5. I said I would use that money to get playoff tickets. I was expecting playoff tickets to be $200, not $400. So that dream kind of went out the window. But I have put my money where my mouth is, and I have flipped that money, and I went double or nothing on the Kings advancing. So I put down $100 bet on the Kings advancing for this round, and I think the Kings are going to take it in 6. As we talked about earlier, I think both teams are going to have multiple road wins, or at least maybe not the Warriors having multiple road wins, but both teams are going to have at least one road win. I think the Kings are able to have 2 road wins this year. I think they'll probably lose 1 at home, and then they'll take 2 on the road. And so that's what I'm going with. Anyone who says this game's going less than 6 was not paying attention to the Kings at all this year, because they're definitely going to put up a fight. They find ways to win when they need to, because they are one of the top clutch teams. De'Aaron Fox has been one of the top clutch players this year. So it's going to be a hard-fought series. It's going to be who makes the least amount of mistakes pretty much, because the offenses are just so good. So I'm a big believer, Kings in 6. I put my money where my mouth is, and hopefully I can use that money to maybe buy another playoff ticket.
Another playoff ticket.
Oh,
exactly.
Boy. If we go to the second round and these tickets are like $500 a piece, it's not going to happen.
I know. And that's what I'm saying. Don't price out the real Kings fans. I mean, come on now. It's not like Laker fans here, coming to 500, 600. That's not how it works out. You have these tickets going really high because Light the Beam is really cool, and I get it. It's the fashionable trend right now. Like Suns in 4 a couple years ago, right? Mm-hmm. So these Kings fans, like, there's a real fan base here. No disrespect to the Suns. I live in Arizona. I know long-suffering Suns fans, but it got to a hoopla all its own that wasn't for the fans, and they weren't the ones perpetuating the craziness that was then. Just they aren't now, and so I do feel very strongly about giving those folks a chance, whether that is like, I know Jillian Adge, I think I said that right. Yes, I always mess with her last name.
Jill Adge.
Thank you. Exactly. I just always say Jillian, even when I'm talking on Twitter. So like, I know she would make a post. I think she was on the news or something about sharing, like, hey, like, Kings fans, like, let's look out for them. The people who like support this team, through Nick Stauskas and the Rajon Rondo years and just all the craziness there. Like, let them get a shot. And I'm with you. Like, that's what I'm all for. Like, the long-suffering fans who really invested, like yourself. You came out when this wasn't even popular to say that back then. I thought you were a little crazy back then. I'm like, you know what? You backed it up a little bit. Like, I appreciate that. You had your numbers and stuff, but that's kind of rich. No, that wasn't even rich. You were the only one spot on. You and a couple other Kings fans I know that were like, boom. So for the irony of that, and no, that really irritates me. If they make it out the second round, I'm going to share on like, we need to make it so that you get a chance to go, because it's only right. Like, come on now. But yeah, other than that, man, this has been, as always, fun. Love having you on. I'm glad we did this. I'm going to let you, you have the floor, my friend.
I was just going to let you know that there were multiple Twitter posts about fans willing to go to Chase Center because tickets were cheaper, or almost like half the price. So it'd be cheaper for you to drive from Sacramento to Chase Center, park there, eat dinner there, go home, fill up your tank of gas, and still be cheaper than actually buying Kings tickets. Because I mean, they did standing room only tickets for game one, and they went for $190, and they sold out in like 5 minutes. Like
that is not right. That is wild. That is wild. I'm sure. Listen, I want to make sure that you find yourself a nice spot to enjoy, get your snacks on. Friends, family, yourself, whatever makes you comfortable. Turn that volume up. Let's feel that crowd pulsing. I know we're gonna do it here. Like, make it your experience for now. Let's hope we can get you in the next round. Some tickets there. But for this one, live it up, man. Enjoy it. First 2 games in Sacramento. I'm so happy for you, man. Listen, check out Erik. Thank you again for coming on, my friend. Like, seriously, we'll have to have you on if the Kings do make it. Even if they don't, we're gonna do off-season preview, all that good stuff. But if they do, yeah, we got to preview the second round. So I hope we get that. I hope I'm wrong in my prediction.
I hope so too. I appreciate you for having me on. It's always a lot of fun getting to talk with you, either on or in person, or on here or on Twitter. And I hope people continue to follow you and follow me.
I appreciate that, absolutely. And speaking of following Erik, make sure you do. The guy, again, knows his hoops. Good conversation on Twitter, always, not just Kings basketball too, like just in general. I find you have some good insight on many of my basketball takes, and I'm crazy on there. So follow Erik on Twitter at ErikBBall3. That's ErikBBall3. As for me, you can follow me on Twitter at CorbinNBA if you are so inclined. Do appreciate it. Definitely make sure to check it out. Sports Ethos as well. Again, this show and many others are available on their website, sportsethos.com, or on Twitter at sportsethos. So listen, we're going to have this drop it out. By the time you end listening to this, it should be a very good primer for the first round that will be coming up in a couple hours by the time you hear this. So definitely make sure to sit back, enjoy, go Kings, I will say at this time. For Erik, for myself, we are Frosty. Y'all stay frosty, and I'll talk to y'all real soon.
Light the beam!